How's it going, everybody? It's Monday, October 10th. It's that time again. Another episode of Rash Decisions with Ala Alarashi. Um, so, this time, I think we're going to talk about two different stories, two different sides of the spectrum. We got a little bit of news story and then something that I also enjoy, which is the NBA. So, a little bit talk about that. So, that's what this episode is going to be about. The first thing that I want to talk about is a strange event that happened in Hamilton. So Hamilton is a city in Canada. It's not part of the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, but it's just outside that. It's further west of Toronto. And what happened there was a Hamilton teen who was killed. He was actually stabbed by other students in front of the school as his mom was waiting for him to come out so that she could pick him up. So the mom was a witness to this, and so it's very traumatic. I could imagine for the mother. Um, a lot of emotions there, for sure. But the thing that I want to highlight here was the fact that this Hamilton teen was also bullied. So there's that's what sparked the whole thing. So the Hamilton teen was bullied. He it was events that were happening throughout the school year. Sorry, from previous years probably, but also the fact that apparently, or what we know is that he was also there was a weapon pulled on him previously too. So the question that I have here is that what is going on in terms of the school? What was the school's mindset? And I'm pretty sure at this point the school is really upset, and they probably regret a lot of things. And so I'm wondering how the principal of the school is doing, because keep in mind I'm a teacher at a school here in Toronto, so there's a lot of things here that I question in terms of school practices, but also the fact that there's a lot of things that get overlooked, but there's also I want to defend the school in a certain sense, but I also think that there was they neglected a lot of signs that could have been brought up, right? So if this student was bullied previously, they should have taken this as seriously as possible, especially if there was a weapon drawn on this kid before, and so now this is the second time, and the second time became more fatal. Like, I understand if that the first time you can't prove anything, but it's serious enough that you need to call the parents of the student, but also talk to the parents of the other child that pulled the weapon on, because for sure that student must have been expelled or something must have happened to that student, which I don't have the full news story about that. However, the fact is this went too far, and then this teen ended up dying because of I think, obviously, first of all, a crazy mindset from these students to think that they could get away with this, whoever killed this guy. And but also it's just very curious as to what was the principal thinking, the vice principal, what could they have done? And I think everybody's asking these questions. How so for me, I'm looking at in terms of a school, the what ends up happening is if these cases come up in terms of bullying or anything like that, they do take it seriously in the school. However, they need to know that there's some kind of evidence so that they could plant it on some of these students in order for them to reprimand them some way. Because if the vice principal or the principal accuses a student of doing something, that could be another issue, and the parent could come in and say, "Hey, listen, my child didn't do anything. He said he didn't do anything. Um, why are you getting rid of him in terms of suspensions or even expulsion?" Right? So that they can't take that lightly. Like, a principal cannot just be like, "Hey, we don't want you here because we heard, or we there was some rumors," right? You have to have evidence about something happening or witnesses that were outside of his circle or outside of what was happening directly between two people. So it's very tough situation. It's a very tough situation for both the principal here and the student. But I think also, I think the parent of this Hamilton teen that was killed, maybe should have taken things seriously if they knew, right? Like, I mean, it's not always known, but if they knew that their child was being bullied, they need to take action and get rid of this, get rid of it, like not get rid of it, sorry, like take him out of that school. So I don't understand what would get into the minds of these students that killed him to think that that would be okay, but not only okay, but that they would get away with it. And what was going through their heads, like psychologically, this they must have been something drastic had to have happened for them to act this way. It's definitely a rash decision here by these students to go out there and kill this teenager in front of in front of his mother, and that's mentally that's a crazy thing. Like, I can't imagine what was going through their heads and how severe the whatever the situation was, what that Hamilton team had done in order for them to act this way. There's no excuses for that. There's no way that that's excusable. But also, what is the solution? Like, what do you guys think? What is the solution here? What do you do as a parent? How do you get rid of these weapons? Do we bring in police? Do we have them around the schools? Do we have detectors to scan students for any weapons, or do we check their lockers periodically? Like, how does this work? And what are we doing? Obviously, like, that's the sad thing. The sad thing is that obviously I don't want to compare it to any other country, but our neighbors, America, this is not America. We shouldn't have to have police around the schools, and we shouldn't have to have detectors, stuff like that. And it's like, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I'm pretty sure people have questions about how come the school reacted so slowly to this, right? Similarly, something happened with another incident, and it's closer to home here in Toronto, where a teen was struck by a vehicle at 2:30 in the morning. First question that comes off the top of my head, unfortunately, is why was this teenager out in the streets at 2:30 in the morning? Where are the parents? How come the parents do not know that their child is out in the streets? But regardless of that, what was the motive behind this trucker? It was a truck that struck and killed this teenager. What was his motive or her motive, and how like ridiculous would that be for them to think that this is excusable, or whatever it was. I heard a rumor that it was that this teenager was going around the neighborhood and breaking into cars. Regardless of that, even if they broke into the car, there's different ways to deal with the situation. They could have went to the cops directly. They could have held onto this kid and called the parents, something, right? In some way where they didn't have to do this make this rash decision of killing this teenager. And I'm pretty sure, whatever the case was, but I'm pretty sure they didn't intend it. Regardless, though, they did do it, and it's crazy. And I think they're still in search of this trucker, and it's just a lot of questions here, from what was going on with the parents, what were the parents thinking, but also what was this trucker thinking, and was it intentional, and why, and just too many questions here. And it just begs the question: is Toronto, the GTA, is being more violent? And there's more violence, sorry, in Toronto and GTA in general. I just read an article recently about Justin Trudeau having to wear a vest, while he was in Toronto. I mean, like, I think it was in Toronto, yeah. So like, that's nuts for a potential candidate in the federal elections to have to wear a vest. That means he's afraid for something. He's been receiving either threats or something came up, and it's like, why all the violence, right? And who do we blame here? Like, I mean, it's not just to blame, but where do we point fingers at, and who do we point fingers at? But how do we fix this situation? Like, is social media to blame? I mean, people hashtagging different things, attacking certain candidates, people people making fun of, like, racial discrimination against even people like Jagmeet Singh. That's another guy that I don't know much about, but from what I know as well is that I don't even know what his platform is. I keep hearing him just just talking about how Andrew Scheer and Justin Trudeau have no reason to do this and that and the other, but I don't even know what his platform is. But besides all that, there's no reason why Trudeau would have to wear a vest. I mean, even Andrew Scheer tweeted that he thinks that that's ridiculous, and it's like it is truly ridiculous. Who do we blame, right? Social media? Do we blame it on the songs or the fact that Toronto is now on the map, quote unquote? Is it going to be like every other big city, or is it going to be now another New York, another Chicago? What is that? Where does this go, and how does, and is it because of the population? There's too many people here. Is it causing more violence? Like, are people just, there's too much unrest? People are stressed out here, maybe? I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, but all I'm saying is that it's too much going on in this city and too much violence. Condolences to the teen, the Hamilton teen, and the family for what happened. Similarly, to the teen struck. Regardless of these actions, I mean, I work at a school. I mean, there's so many times where I find students irritating, but never to a point that it gets to that, right? Like, I can't even imagine that I guess people just don't have patience with these teenagers anymore, or from what they think or what they know, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Very unfortunate. Fortunately, taking it to another topic here. I want to move on to the NBA. Just following up about Kyle Lowry. I mean, I remember I posted up a picture of Kyle Lowry in terms of his his contract of getting a 1 year, $31 million contract. And I was just making fun of the fact that he knows he doesn't deserve it. A lot of people got back to me and said, no, he does deserve it because he won a championship. I don't think that's like that's deserving of a $31 million contract. Now there's rumors about him being traded possibly to either the Clippers. I think it was Detroit as well. I forgot the other team there was potential trade going on. But I'm wondering, it's still the same question. Who would take on his contract at this point? And is it a move, and clearly it probably is, but is it a move to dump salary cap by the Toronto Raptors? Masai Ujiri is probably doing this purposely to try to dump salary cap after that year. But also, is he making a trade, and then does it help the other team that he's being traded to dump him after that year, basically get rid of him after that year, and then they now have money to play around with? And is that the case in terms of how many people are we going to get for him? How many players can we possibly get for him, and who would be willing to move on to here in Toronto and be actually effective the same way Kyle Lowry was? And are we using them as pieces afterwards to trade for another big piece maybe? I don't know what's going on, but that's I still do think it was a rash decision by Masai Ujiri to take this risk, especially at the age that Kyle Lowry is at. He's at 33 right now. He's on the decline, has to be on the decline, significantly going down in terms of his production level. Definitely not going to be effective without another star there in Toronto or here in Toronto. So unless we get somebody else to come here to Toronto, which is another thing. It's funny how although we've had in the past really good players come to Toronto, we've drafted good players too. We've had Vince Carter, we've had Tracy McGrady, Chris Bosh was another good draft pick. We've had a lot of bad draft picks. That's besides the point. We haven't really gotten a lot of players to come to Toronto via trade. There hasn't been many players that have come to Toronto willingly, and even if when we did get them, like Lou Williams, and he explained, and you could go look that up, he explained how he didn't even want to be in Toronto. He was just happy to be in the States and on the road when he played other teams. So it's very interesting to see. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that, obviously a lot of factors. If you do play in Toronto as a player, you're paying taxes both here and in the States if you're American. But I think that's also covered by the fact that they do get a better salary, though. They're paid more, knowing that this is what's going to happen. So I think it does cover either way, though. I think American players just feel more comfortable, obviously, at home as much as any Canadian player would probably feel comfortable being in Toronto, right? So I don't blame anybody to not come here, but what do we got to do to get that traction? And frankly, I think we're not going to get another championship unless we get another big name coming to Toronto. We need superstars. We don't need all stars. I mean, we had DeMar DeRozan. He played for our team, but he wasn't effective in the playoffs. He was not a superstar. I don't call him a superstar. I think he's just an all-star. He needs another player with him to play well. I think even right now, what's going on is that they're trying to shop around for DeMar DeRozan too in San Antonio. So clearly things are like, I think DeMar DeRozan was great for Toronto while he was there during the season, but playoffs is where we really need those players, and he wasn't effective. So that's why I think people don't come to Toronto too. It just there's not a good track record. Whether people like it or not, we did get lucky last year and won the championship. Even as a basketball fan and as a player that knows the history of the Toronto Raptors, and I bet you a lot of people that were cheering for Toronto last year had no clue when the franchise started and who their first even draft pick was and who their general manager was at that time. So those people that don't know that and just bandwagoning last year can't talk to me about how they're oh no, they're really good fans of, or they're fans of the Toronto Raptors. So yeah, we did get lucky. We it was right timing for everything to happen. All their injuries, yeah, injuries are part of the sport. And that's why all the other teams, I mean, yeah, we did, like, that's the same thing. I think I'll say the same thing about Golden State Warriors when they won that year when Kyrie went down, and then Kevin Love was injured as well, and LeBron was there to defend, like, basically going up against the Warriors and their all-stars before even Kevin Durant came. So I would say the same thing for everybody, but it's just, yeah, it is part of the sport. But we can't even just we can't say that, oh, whether if they had Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, they probably would have won it, right? The Golden State Warriors. But needless to say, we did win that championship. However, I still don't think that players are willingly going to come to Toronto. It's just a different atmosphere here. For a lot of players, American players, they don't feel comfortable around here. I don't blame them, right? It is what it is. But what do you guys think? You still think that Masai Ujiri made the right decision here, or was it a rash decision? Also, this is very interesting because I'm watching highlights preseason. Lonzo Ball looks really good. I've seen him practicing on his shot. It looks a little bit different. It looks good. Zion looks amazing right now. Preseason is putting up big numbers in a small amount of time, which is efficient, and that's what you want from a player. And from a rookie, that's even more amazing to have an efficient rookie. Lonzo Ball and Zion look like they have a connection there, and Lonzo Ball loves to pass the ball. Zion is efficient, so I think it will work out well. And is that going to be a dangerous duo to look out for maybe in the near future? I think even maybe in the second half of the season if it goes well for them. But they have a lot of young pieces, and they got some veterans there. We'll see how that goes. But the point that I was trying to make with this is that recent news about the Lakers, Anthony Davis hurt his thumb. Who knows how long he's going to be out for? Somebody, I think I saw this on a comment on Instagram, was making fun of the fact that he's built like a paper, like a piece of paper, very flimsy, like very like injury prone. That's the point. And do we think, like, I mean, I think the Lakers made a rash decision in getting Anthony Davis and dumping all and getting rid of all their young guys. You know, Alonzo Ball could have developed into a good player. Brandon Ingram, I'm pretty sure now those guys are going to try to prove their point about the Lakers made a mistake for sure. It has to be. And if it's not, that means they just don't have that drive. Because any player that's competitive will tell you that if somebody gets traded, they try to prove their point by whenever they play the other team, or even in general trying to show off their skills that they know that the other team missed out on. So that's this week's episode. Comment about all the things that I just mentioned. uh, in this podcast. If you have any comments or input, let me know. If you think I'm wrong, even better, more to discuss. Follow me on Instagram, apex_Marshall, and on Twitter, Alarashi, hashtag Rash Decisions on your posts, and comment and like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, which this is going to be on, and I'll link this episode to all the other platforms as well. All right, have a good week, all y'all, and I'll see y'all. I won't see you guys. I'll check in next week.